let's turn our attention back to the search for that stricken sub, the Titan sub, that went missing, lost contact with the surface on Sunday morning. 12:08 p.m. today, UK time, is when the US Coast Guard says that the oxygen supply for those 5 men still on board, including 3 British citizens, will run out. This is a hope against hope of finding these men alive and then having to try and bring them to the surface. Time, frankly, may well already be out. Well, let's talk to a man now who's the first Briton to dive to the Titanic, Dik Barton. He's former director of operations, RMS Titanic Inc., and joins us now. Good morning to you, Dik. Thank you very much indeed. Well, you're one of the very few souls on this planet who's actually been down to this extraordinary wreck of the Titanic. You're also, I mean, this must be a very difficult time for you. You're a friend of the missing sub-pilot, the Frenchman, Paul-Henri Nargeolet. Tell us, first of all, your feelings right now as a friend more than as an expert in this field.
Yeah, Julia, it's a mixed emotion, isn't it? It's your worst nightmare. You never even contemplate this could ever happen. And PH is an extraordinary individual. 37 died on the wreck. He knows the wreck like the back of his hand. He is an extremely experienced submariner. He's an ex-French naval officer. He has all the attributes, all the skill set to make this happen. And he can only be just a guiding influence for the guys in that tube right now. But I can't even imagine what they have been through and are going through. We're ever optimistic, of course.
Well, indeed. I was wondering, we've got quite bad sound. I was wondering if you could move forward a bit. I'm hoping that might help with the quality of the sound. You say this is your worst nightmare. I mean, my heart goes out to you as a friend of this man. Again, he's an adventurer, and people have a right to take risks that other of us would not be willing to do. The risk I imagine you've taken diving down to the Titanic is a risk that most people wouldn't do. For many people, this is just even sitting in that tiny capsule, that 21-foot capsule, is their worst nightmare. Before you even put it under the ocean, you add that in, and then this lack of oxygen and the like. It really is awful. But I mean, we spoke to a former naval commander, Dr. Chris Parrott, earlier, and he said, look, he says he thinks it's over, and he says everything has to go right every time when you're dealing with the ocean, whether you're on the surface or certainly when you're underneath, and that there just were not enough safety procedures and mechanisms to make this a safe mission. Do you agree?
Yeah, the fundamental issue here is design of the craft. So when we dive, we used a purpose-built deep water submersible, which is effectively a sphere. It's a 1.9 meter diameter round globe which you live in. This is a tube, and the physics tells you that power and exertion and depth, the pressures of that depth, 6,500 pounds a square inch, the equivalent of balancing 2 adult elephants on a thumbnail. It's going to take an impact and effect. And the Titan has made many dives to that depth. She's rated to 4,000 meters, which has some small redundancy because the Titanic's at 38,000. And sadly, it's not looking good in so much as statistically, but we have to be optimistic. And
yeah,
if you look at history right now, very quickly, the Thai schoolboys were found in the underwater cave system. All hope was given up. They were found and rescued. So we have to be...
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think so many people are making that analogy, but the key thing is that they were above ground. They weren't, thousands of feet below sea level. But we knew where they were, roughly. I mean, the cave system is nothing like as large as the search area that is having to be searched at the current time. We have numerous vessels. We've got aeroplanes in the air using these sonar buoys, which we've heard this banging noise, obviously. We've got the ships on the surface, and we've got these submersibles that are already, 2 ROVs already underwater leading that search. Tell me about the significance, you think, of the banging noises that we've been hearing, because they seem to not be able to identify where they're coming from specifically, but also what they are. Because some experts have said to us, look, a banging noise every half hour wouldn't be a sign of human life. You'd be doing an SOS signal every 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, banging conventionally has been a submariner's means of communication emergency. That's how they found the USS Arizona during Pearl Harbor, and they recovered the seaman. The Kursk seaman on the Russian submersible in 2000. But noise travels through water so quickly, that's how you communicate. Yeah. And don't forget the ocean, where is the size of whales here. And the activity down there is huge. There's mammal, there's marine life, there's cable laying vessels, there's propellers, there's all sorts going on. So to attribute this to a potential SOS, I think is a stretch.
Yeah.
And probably, we have to be, well, I'm sorry, just to be consistent, ever optimistic that there's a favourable outcome to it, but it's not looking good.
Indeed. I mean, this is it. I mean, realistically, best case scenario is at 12:08 UK time today that oxygen runs out, but they've got limited water. We know, and very little food. Food you can survive without, but water you need. You can't last more than 3 days. Most human beings. 5 men on board, sitting in those cramped conditions. Hypothermia may well have set in. There's concern about scrubbing if they've lost power, the scrubber to clean the oxygen of the carbon dioxide. That they may well be unconscious by now. That may at least mean that you're using less oxygen. That's another hope. We know that the rescue mission, as I said, I mean, the US Coast Guard said, look, we're going to carry on the search for days, because if there's any sign of hope, and in particular you've got a 19-year-old on board, the start of his life, you're gonna do everything. But is there a responsibility here? I mean, the people who chose to go down, including the chief executive of the organisation that owns it, Ocean Gate Expeditions, that they should have had more safety mechanisms, that they should have called in the US Coast Guard sooner. It was 8 hours before they alerted the authorities, and just that there just wasn't enough preparation, and perhaps there isn't enough regulation in this field.
This is going to change significantly underwater exploration, and certainly in the context of these tourist dives. Regulatory-wise, the vessel was compliant. We understand they're probably self-insured. But at the end of the day, the risk is with you. You know the risk. It's quantifiable. You sign a waiver, and this is not a normal thing to do. And you then have to have some kind of perverse bent or whatever it may be to want to do it. We did it because we were commercial professionals in the salvage industry. These guys are tourists and effectively balanced inside a tube at the behest of an extremely competent pilot and hopefully a certified vessel.
Indeed. Well, Dik Barton, I really hope that your friend comes back alive, and we will be cheering away. A former director of operations, RMS Titanic, First Briton to dive to Titanic, friend of that missing sub-pilot Paul-Henri Nargeolet.